Okay. Today's daf is daf kuf yud aleph, but we're going to start from the Gemara on daf kuf yud amud beis. Okay, here we go. The Gemara is discussing in the Mishnah we learned. Hold on, Sheldon. Hi, Sheldon. We just started.
Yeah.
Okay, we just started, Sheldon.
Okay, great.
Okay, perfect. So we're starting the Mishnah, the Gemara on Daf Kuf Yud Amud Beis. Today's theme is Israel. That's the whole theme of the Gemaras that we're going to learn today. The Gemara says that if everybody can force their spouse to move to Israel, Hakol Mal Eretz Yisrael, which means if the other spouse does not cooperate, either if it's a woman, she'll lose her ksuba. If it's the man who doesn't want to move to Israel, then he's forced to divorce his wife and pay ksuba. So that's what the Mishnah says. Hakol Malin, anybody can compel anybody to move to Eretz Yisrael. So the Gemara says like this. Okay, let's just make it a little bigger. Hakol Malin. Hakol Malin la tuyamai. What is this coming to include? That means you can force anybody in your family to move to Israel. What does that mean? What does that include? I mean, a person normally has his wife and children. What else does it include? La tuye avodim. If you have if you have a knecht, if you have a Yiddish knecht, and you want to make a move from the 5 towns to Eretz Yisrael, he has to follow along. You could force the knecht to follow along. If the Mishnah says so, there's a girsa in the Mishnah that says that you could even force your eved, your slave, to move to Israel. So what does the Hakol Malin include? What does it mean? Who else could you enforce? It's coming to include Min Noveh Yahayafeh L'Nova Hara. If you're leaving from a nice, beautiful neighborhood in America and you're moving to a bad neighborhood in Israel. So you're moving to a cramped Neish Sharim or whatever, I don't know, a very, very cramped neighborhood and a small apartment.
Who's supposed to pay for the two? The boss or Israel?
No, I know. Well, the husband. I mean, if the husband says to his wife, "Listen,"
but for the knecht, who pays for the knecht?
This is a evidivri. This is the udon. The boss has to pay. The boss pays. That's for sure. But the ich blab du befrei mich. Nein, misgefunden kann Yisrael.
Yeah.
The ein hakol matzien. What this means, and you can't kick anybody out of Eretz Yisrael. If people are living in Eretz Yisrael, you can't enforce that you want your family to move out of Eretz Yisrael. La tuye mai, what does that include? La tuye eved shebarach mechutz la'aretz, an eved, a man had a slave, an eved Kanani, that ran from chutz la'aretz, and he moved to Eretz Yisrael. He ran away from his boss, and he moved to Eretz Yisrael. You can't say, you have to come back to me. The Amrina lay, because the Eved can say, I made it to Eretz Yisrael, Zabini Hocha, sell me to somebody who lives here, Vizil, and let me go. Because Yeshivas Eretz Yisrael, because I want to live in Eretz Yisrael. So the Eved could force his master to sell him to somebody else if he ran away to Eretz Yisrael. Then the Mishnah said, Akol Malin Yerushalayim. Anybody could force even if you're living in another part of Israel, you can force your spouse or your family to move to Yerushalayim. Yerushalayim is even better. Latuye mai, what does that include? Latuye menova hayofa lenova hara. Even if you're going from a bad neighborhood or bad type of dwelling, a beautiful type of dwelling to a bad type of dwelling, you can enforce it to force your family to move to Yerushalayim. So if you're moving from a beautiful place in Tel Aviv, you can force your family to move to a smaller place in Yerushalayim. Even if you want to leave Yerushalayim from a bad area to a beautiful area, you still you can't force your family to leave Yerushalayim. This is obvious because if you could force your family to go to a Nova Ra in Yerushalayim, certainly you can't force them to leave to a Nova Yafa outside Yerushalayim. So, but it's symmetry. So that's why the Mishnah said hakoil, ein mitziyin. It's symmetry, but it doesn't teach you anything novel. Tanu Rabbanan, the Gebraisa explains mostly what the Mishnah wants to say. You have a husband who says, "Who I'm lalas." He says to his wife, the footman, "We're going to Eretz Yisrael." The Emeris, and she says, "Shloi lalas megaitnish." She doesn't want to go. Koifin oiser lalas. They force her to go along with the husband. The imlav, if she doesn't want to go, teitze b'loy ksuba. She gets a get, and she doesn't get the ksuba. In the opposite case, also, Emeris la'alois. She says, "I'm going to Eretz Yisrael." Who I met, he says, Shloi lalas, he doesn't want to go to Eretz Yisrael. We force him to go up to Eretz Yisrael because his wife wants to go. Ve'im lav, if not, yoitziv ksuba, he has to divorce his wife and give a ksuba. Of course, we try to make shulam bias, but if they can't, if this is the only issue that's separating them and there's no choice, we force a divorce and he has to pay ksuba. He Ameris, let's say they're living in Eretz Yisrael. He Ameris, let's say, who Ameris, let's say, he says, I want to leave Eretz Yisrael. She says, I want to leave Eretz Yisrael. And she says not to leave. We force her not to leave Eretz Yisrael. The imlav, if not, so he has to divorce her and pay and without a ksuba. Because he doesn't want to leave Eretz Yisrael. But who I melotzes, he wants to leave Eretz Yisrael. He Ameris, but she doesn't want to leave Eretz Yisrael. So he's in the wrong. We try to force him not to give a get, not to leave Eretz Yisrael. Then lav, but if he doesn't, he still wants to leave Eretz Yisrael. Yotzi has to divorce his wife, he thinks ksuba, and then he has to give ksuba. The Mishnah says, the Mishnah, by the way, told us another din, that whenever you marry a woman in Eretz Yisrael, and no matter what, you always go, the money for ksuba is committed to wherever is the lighter money. So if you married a woman in Eretz Yisrael and you gave her a divorce in Cyprus, you pay the currency of Eretz Yisrael. The Gemara is going to elaborate on that part of the Mishnah before we get back to Eretz Yisrael stuff. Nasa Isha, Gufa Kasha, that's intrinsically contradictory. Ketani, the Mishnah says, Nasa Isha Eretz Yisrael, if you marry an Isha in Israel, the Gersha Bekapotkin, and you divorce her in Cyprus, so what currency do you use to pay the ksuba? You give her from the money of Eretz Yisrael because that's where the commitment of the ksuba came. The marriage took place in Eretz Yisrael. So that makes sense. So we see from that part of the Mishnah that what's the most important? You go after where the commitment took place. I'm a sefer. Let's see the end of the Mishnah. The marriage took place in Cyprus and you divorced in Eretz Yisrael. Which should the Mishnah should say that the money of the ksuba is kaputkia money, but the Mishnah doesn't say that. The Mishnah says you pay money from Eretz Yisrael. Alma, so we see from that part of the Mishnah that the main currency determining the payment of the ksuba is where the collection took place. So what is it? Is it where the commitment took place or where the collection took place? Amar Rabba said Mikulik ksuba ksonikam. The Tana of the Mishnah holds ksuba the Rabbanan. And these are one of the coolest, that ksuba, the whole ksuba, the payment of ksuba, we always go light. And since the Eretz Yisrael currency was lighter than the Kaputkia currency, sort of like the Canadian dollar is worth less than the American dollar, etc. So therefore, you pay the lighter currency because the Tana of the Mishnah holds ksuba the Rabbanan. But Rab Shimon ben Gamliel argues, he holds kaputkia. If you took your commitment in kaputkia, even if the divorce happened at Eretz Yisrael, you give the kaputkia money. Because Rab Shimon ben Gamliel argued, he holds ksuba daraisa. Ksuba is minatayra, and therefore minatayra you go after where the commitment took place. Tan Rabbanan, the rabbis taught, if someone's trying to collect a debt, now collecting a debt is daraisa. The guy has to borrow money, he has to pay. That's a daraisa. Kasabay b'bavel. If the commitment, the star took place, he wrote the star in Bavel, Magbeim Mois Bavel. Kasabay Eretz Yisrael, if it was written in Eretz Yisrael, Magbeim Mois Eretz Yisrael, then you use the currency of Eretz Yisrael. Kasabay Stam, if it wrote in the paper Stam, you don't know what to do. Should you collect from Eretz Yisrael money or from Bavel money? Depends where you're doing the collection. If you took it out in Bavel, Magvei Mim Bavel. If you took it out in Eretz Yisrael, Magvei Mim Eretz Yisrael. You take it out, then you collect from the currency of Eretz Yisrael. Chaser boy kesef stam. If it says the guy is going to pay any amount of money, let's say it says normally it says 200, but it doesn't say $200, 200 quarters, 200 dimes. So mashiyitza loiva magbeya, whatever the loiva wants to settle the debt, he can settle the debt because it doesn't clearly say how much money you have to pay back of the loan. It just says pay 200, so that's too bad. You pay whatever you want. Mashain came b'ksuba. But a ksuba, we do something different. So the Gemara asks, that ends the brisa. Ahai, what part of is different by a ksuba that this brisa is trying to say ksuba is different? You see, on the beginning, it says that if it's clearly wherever the shibud, wherever the commitment took place, that's the currency you use. The brisa holds that with ksuba, we don't go where the commitment took place. You always go you use always the lighter form of a currency. So it depends. If the currency is lighter, where you're doing the collection, that's the currency you'll use to pay the ksuba. But this brisa disagrees with Rav Shimon Gamliel, who held that ksuba is daraisa, and he holds that ksuba is no different than any other loan. Kosher boy kesef stam, but if, let's say, a loan document said, pay me back, it's 200 silvers, but it doesn't say 200 silver what? So the Gemara says you pay back whatever coin you want. It doesn't say 200 silver quarters or dollars or whatever. Maybe it's maybe you have to pay 200 bars of silver. How do you know you can get away with coins? It said you pay me back kesef matbea, silver coins, but it doesn't say which silver coins. So the Gemara says maybe it's silver pennies. So maybe they made silver pennies and you'll have to find silver pennies. Most people don't make silver pennies. It's not a common currency. So what common currencies are? So either you pay nickels, dimes, quarters, $50, but you can decide what you want to do. Okay, that was a side brisa. Now we get back to the conversation we have about moving to Israel. A person should try to live in Israel, even if the city is mostly Arabs. Don't live in Chutz La'aretz, even if you're living in a neighborhood that mostly Jews live, you're living in small town, it's better to live in an Arab neighborhood in Eretz Yisrael. The Brisa continues, whoever lives in Israel, it's as if you have a God. What it means is that you can see more hashkacha pratis in Eretz Yisrael. Like Elikai refers to how Kadosh Baruch Hu deals with you on an individual basis. And you can make, so you sort of can connect the dots in your life in Israel better than in Chutz La'aretz. If you live in Chutz La'aretz, it's almost like as if you don't have a God. Shenema, where do you see that in the Pasuk? That only in Eretz Canaan, in Eretz Yisrael, you can see the godly interest in your life. So it's more Yeshi Ashkacha Pratis. So Gemara asks, can you say that whoever does not live in Eretz Yisrael, you can't see Hashkacha Pratis? It's as if you're serving Avodah Zarah. In other words, what we're trying to say is, yes, of course, there is Hashkacha Pratis in Chutz La'aretz. God is concerned about the whole world. It doesn't matter. Hashkacha Pratis exists anywhere. But when you're in Chutz La'aretz, it's harder to see it. It's almost like you're worshiping Avodah Zarah. That's why when David had to leave Eretz Yisrael, he used to say, he considered when I was thrown out of Eretz Yisrael, it's almost as if God was telling me, go serve other gods. Who told David HaMelech, Lech avoid Elohim achem, go serve other gods? This is a remez, a riot, called Adar b'chutz la'aretz. If you live in Chutz La'aretz, ki'ilu oved avodah zarah, it's if you're serving avodah zarah. So the Gemara just spoke about the advantage of living in Eretz Yisrael. Says the Gemara, but not everybody. So not everybody held that an individual should move to Eretz Yisrael. Gemara said, Rabbi Zera have a komishtamet mined Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Zera was trying to avoid his Rebbe, Rabbi Yehuda. They both lived in Bavel. Why? Because Rabbi Zera, the Boyle Mesik Eretz Yisrael, Rabbi Zera wanted to make Aliyah and wanted to go to Eretz Yisrael. But Rabbi Yehuda, his rabbi, held, Rabbi Yehuda, whoever leaves Bavel to go to Israel is transgressing an asay, a positive commandment. Shnema, we go to Kuf Yad Aleph and Aleph. God says that you should be in Bavel until Mashiach comes, basically, even by the first base of English, but it's applied by the second base of English as well. So therefore, he held that we are supposed to be in Bavel and wait to the calling of God to move to Eretz Yisrael. So even on an individual basis, you're not supposed to move to Eretz Yisrael. That's what Rabbi Yehuda held. Rabbi Zera said, Ahu b'klisharis. If that's only talking about, if you look at the context of the pasuk, it's talking about the vessels of the Beis Hamikdash. That's what you're not supposed to. That's what it's talking about. If you move to Eretz Yisrael, that you should stay in Bavel. The Kalim of the Beis Hamikdash stood in Bavel, but an individual should be permitted to move to Eretz Yisrael. Now back to the Gemara. Rabbi Yehuda, Kuf Yud Aleph Amar Aleph, third line. Rabbi Yehuda again. Rabbi Yehuda is of the opinion that one should never move to Israel, period. He's of the opinion that once you're in Bavel, you should have to stay in Bavel. And but where did Rabbi Yehuda know that you're not supposed to move to Israel and that you should wait till Hashem calls you to move to Israel? Because the pasuk says, Ksiv Kra Achrina. There was another pasuk that says, Yishvati Eschem B'Reish Yerushalayim Voice of Bayalis Osoda. God makes you swear that he swore in the Bnei Yisrael, so to speak, or you can say the Goyim, that they should not make a move at shetechpatz. That's a pasuk in Shir HaShirim. Until I desire you to move to Eretz Yisrael, stay put. Okay? In other words, if perhaps Rabbi Yehuda is of the opinion, in order to move to Israel, you have to be like a vessel. You have to be a worthy person to move to Israel. It's not something that you can just pick up. It's too much light. And therefore, the pasuk is saying, wait until you're called to move to Eretz Yisrael. So that's Rabbi Yehuda's source. But Rabbi Zera, who wanted to move to Israel, that he learned that pasuk. It says, Hahu shlo yal Yisrael b'choima. You shouldn't have a mass movement to Eretz Yisrael. If the whole Klal Yisrael should not move to Eretz Yisrael until Mashiach comes, to build walls and stuff like that, to fortify Eretz Yisrael until Mashiach comes. I agree with that. But as an individual, Rabbi Zera held, I can move there. Rabbi Yehuda still said an individual, he held his ground. He said, Ishvati Achrina Kasim. There's another pasuk that one is not allowed to move to Eretz Yisrael. So that until you're called upon. So that's another pasuk that is not to move to Eretz Yisrael. Comes along the Gemara, and the Gemara says, Rabbi Zera, what does Rabbi Zera do? Rabbi Zera, what's the pasuk of Rabbi Zera? He held that again, that the individual could move to Eretz Yisrael. So, pardon me. Let me just get this picture. Hold it. Okay. So Rabbi Zera, he needs these psukim to Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Chanina. The Amar who said, Gimel Shvuis Halalu Lami. Why did the pasuk in Shir HaShirim, if you know Shir HaShirim, if you get comfortable with the words, it says 3 times the same pasuk. Ishbate eskem b'nei Yishlayim b'tzivos avi'ayelos hasodev im te'iru te'iru acha techpatz. Why does God say 3 times, I swear, don't do these things until you're called upon? So the pasuk is teaching you achas l'shloyali Yisrael b'choyma. That teaches you that Jewish people en masse should not go up and try to force the issue to move to Eretz Yisrael and start building it until Mashiach comes. That the HaKadosh Baruch Hu said to the Jewish people, don't start a rebellion against the nations of the world. You're in Golus, you got to accept it until God will call you in the time of Mashiach. But on the other hand, that the Goyim should not persecute the Jewish people more than appropriate. So that's why those are the 3 Shavuos. So therefore, we need all 3 psukim, but there's no individual pasuk, according to Rabbi Zera, that prohibits an individual to move to Eretz Yisrael. It's only en masse to move to Eretz Yisrael. Of course, they resolve this Gemara, which seems to say we should not move to Eretz Yisrael and establish a state. But they resolve this Gemara by saying, since the Goyim did not heed the Shvuah that HaKadosh Baruch Hu swore that they should not persecute the Jews more than appropriate, certainly after the Holocaust. So therefore, they absolved themselves of that Shvuah. So we don't have to we absolved ourselves of the Shvuah of not going up to Eretz Yisrael b'choima, to build walls and to take over Eretz Yisrael. So one Shvuah is connected with the other Shvuah. So, but Rabbi Yehuda in his time held that an individual should not move to Eretz Yisrael. He had a Shvuah into Irum to Oru. He says that each pasuk implies a double Shvuah because it says into Irum to Oru, don't provoke and don't incite. So there's 6 Shvuahs over there. So maybe one of the Shvuah, God makes a swearing, a commitment that we have to commit not to go individually to Eretz Yisrael. Rab Zera, he also needs 6 Shvuahs, but he uses each one of them. The Rab Levi, the Amma who said Sheish Shvuahs alol lama. Why is there 6 times it says Shvuah that God swore the Knesset Yisrael? Knesset Yisrael is like the one neshama of all the Jewish people. We took an oath to God. So we took 6 oaths. We took 3 oaths, what we just said before. 1, we committed ourselves never to go to Israel en masse. The other, we swore that we're never going to rebel against the Ummah Sa'olam. And then there was a Shvuah that HaKadosh Baruch Hu took an oath with the Goyim that they shouldn't persecute us more than appropriate. But there's more Shvuahs we took on. We took more oaths. Shlo yigalu es hakates. Those that know when Mashiach is coming have an oath not to reveal when the end is coming. The next thing is the shlo yichdachgu es hakates. Fascinating thing. Rashi says it means we should not press God, pray too much for the redemption. It seems like anti-Lubavitch, but what's basically saying is don't pray too much for the redemption. Let's see the Rashi says. Because God has a reason why he's delaying the redemption until we're ready, until we're a vessel to accept the light of Eretz Yisrael. That's what we're saying over here. And don't reveal secrets of the Torah to the Goyim. That's another oath. So since Rav Zera had 6 oaths and all of them are used, there is no extra pasuk that prohibits an individual to go to Eretz Yisrael. Again, all you have to remember is there was a machlekes in the Amoraim whether an individual can move to Eretz Yisrael. Rav Yehuda even was strict that an individual should not move from Bavel to Eretz Yisrael. Maybe he was only particular about Bavel to move to Eretz Yisrael. But Rav Zera said no, the prohibition is in a group as a whole klal yisrael to move at once to Eretz Yisrael. That's prohibited, but an individual can move. We're just discussing what does the Torah say? What does the Shir Hashim say that you should be like a gazelle or like a young deer, or like a young deer? God, so to speak to the Jewish people. If you keep these oaths, very good. If not, then it's open hunting against Jewish people. If you don't keep all these oaths that we just discussed, then the Jews I'll let you be free to be hunted by the Goyim. Unbelievable. Amar Rablaza says, "Kol adar b'Eretz Yisrael shar b'loy ovid." If you live in Eretz Yisrael, it's as if you're cleansed from sin. In other words, Eretz Yisrael, no matter when you go, even for vacation, there's some difficulties and there's suffering, but that's a cleansing. It cleanses you from sin. Shenamar ubal yom meshochen chalisi. You shouldn't say that to live there is very difficult. Chalisi ha'am hayoshibab. Those you get sick. For chalisi means I'm in stress. The people that are living in Eretz Yisrael, because nesu oven you get a forgiveness of iniquity. There's a forgiveness of sin faster there. Amalei Rav said to Rav Ashi, that pasuk I don't refer to that to Eretz Yisrael. I refer to that anybody who's sick. Anybody who loyalenu is sick for a little bit, he should know, even though he's terrible and he's bedridden, but there's a certain cleansing of sin because of your sickness. And so that's what Rabbi learned to Rav Ashi about that pasuk. Amar Rabbanan said, Kol HaKover Eretz Yisrael, if you're buried in Eretz Yisrael, even though you didn't live in Eretz Yisrael, Ki'ilu Kover Tachas HaMizbeach. It's as if you're buried underneath the Mizbeach, which basically means you get a certain, like a forgiveness. There's something special about being buried in Eretz Yisrael, even if you didn't live in Eretz Yisrael. Because Kisiv Haka, the pasuk says, Mizbeach Adama Tasali. The Torah calls that you should make a Mizbeach out of Adama. Uksiv Hasam, it says another pasuk about those that are buried in Eretz Yisrael, is V'chiper Atmosai Amoy. Those that are those that will be buried in Eretz Yisrael, they'll get a kapara. They'll get a kapara, and so they will get a kapara. So therefore, those that are, and that's referring to Eretz Yisrael. So therefore, it's almost it's almost that those that are buried in Eretz Yisrael, it's as if they're buried underneath the Mizbeach. As Rashi says in Chumash, by the way, that God, when he created man last week, if you learn Chumash Rashi says that God created man. Where did he get the earth from? Either he got it from all four corners of the world, or he took earth that was underneath the Mizbeach on Har HaBayis, and from that he created the original man. The Gemara says a story. Ula, who lived in Bavel, used to go to Eretz Yisrael to learn, but then he died in Chutz La'aretz. He died in Bavel. Also, Amr Le Rab Lazar, they told Rab Lazar, who lived in Eretz Yisrael, Amr Ant Ula, he said, Ula died in Bavel, Al Admos Tmeisa Thomas. You died on a Tamei land. That's where you died. It's a shame. Amr Lai, so they told Rab Lazar, but he's coming to be buried in Eretz Yisrael. So he said to them, that's also okay, but not great. You can't compare somebody who was grasped by Eretz Yisrael while he was still alive than somebody who's going to be grasped and clasped by Eretz Yisrael after he's dead. You have to live there before you die. It's better to live there before you die than just to come there after you die. Hahu Gavra, here's a strange story. Hahu Gavra, the Nafla le Yabama Bechazoi, a guy who lived in Eretz Yisrael, and he had a Yabama who was in Bechazoi, outside of Eretz Yisrael, and he wanted to know if he could go ahead and leave Eretz Yisrael and marry that lady. So he came to Rab Chanina. So Rab Chanina told him, Achiv nasa kusis meis, your brother married a woman, lived outside of Eretz Yisrael, and he died. And now Rab Chanina wanted to make his point. Baruch HaMokam Sharaga. God bless him that he killed your brother. Now that this woman is falling to Yibam, to you want to leave Eretz Yisrael and marry her, and you want to go follow her to Chutz La'aretz. It's a very sharp statement over here. But I guess he wanted to make his point that you should not go there, leave Eretz Yisrael to marry this Yavama. Amar Rav Yehuda Amar Shmuel, Kashem she'asu lotzis Eretz Yisrael leBavel, just like you're not allowed to go from Eretz Yisrael to Bavel, kach also lotzis miBavel l'shar rotzis. One should not leave Bavel to other lands. I guess they felt that if somebody would leave Bavel, he would lose his Jewishness. So you're not permitted to leave Bavel. Rabbi Yosef, the Amar Tavayu, afil mepumpadisa leBeikuve. Even if you're leaving Bavel, Pumpadisa, and you're going to Beikuve, which is right just outside of Bavel, it's like an hour's trip or something like that. That's also wrong. Somebody left Pumpadisa in Bavel, great city, and he went to Beikuve. Shamte Rabbi Yosef. Rabbi Yosef put him in Cherem. A person left Pumpadisa and Estonia, probably also very close to Bavel. He wasn't so far away. Shachim, then he died. Apparently, he was a Talmud Chacham. So Abaye said, if this rabbi wanted to, he could have lived. In other words, he caused his own death. He shouldn't have left Pumpadisa. Rabbi Yosef, Damru Tavai, Rabbi Yosef both say, Kasherin Shabbavarv, Eretz Yisrael Kalatam. Kasherin Shabbasharatzim, Bava Kalatam. That means those that are kosher in Bavel could fit in very nicely in Eretz Yisrael. Those who have a kosher in Chutz La'aretz and outside Eretz Yisrael can fit nicely in Bavel. Lamai. So here we're teaching you something very important. It's trying to tell you who's more of a pure Jew, the Jew in Bavel or the Jew in Eretz Yisrael. The truth is, it's not true. The Jew in Eretz Yisrael has somehow, there's mamzerim mixed in over there. Babel was more pure. They kept Taharas Mishpacha better there. Every land is considered to be a mixed up dough to Eretz Yisrael. The Eretz Yisrael, Isa, LaBavel. And Eretz Yisrael is considered like a mixed up dough to Bavel. That means most of the pure Jews live in Bavel. So in what way is Eretz Yisrael better? That a kosher of a Bavel is very much welcomed into Eretz Yisrael. Ella le'inyan kvura. It's regarding burial. Burial, it's better to be buried in Eretz Yisrael than to be buried in Bavel. But also, it's better to be buried in Bavel than to be buried in other lands. In other words, it's better to be buried in a Makom Torah. If you're going to be buried in Chutz La'aretz, try be buried maybe in Brooklyn or something like that, where some Makom Torah than an outside place. That's what the Gemara seems to say over here. Amar Rav Yehuda said, Kol hadar beBavel ki'ilu dar be'Eretz Yisrael. Whoever lives in Bavel is as if he's living in Eretz Yisrael. Again, Bavel was the prime Torah, the source of the Talmud Bavli. Tzion himolti, save yourself, yeshevas bas Bavel. So the pasuk compares that those that are in Bavel are like in Sion. Abaya naktinim. Abaya used to Amar Abaya said, Naktinam, we have a tradition, the suffering before Mashiach will not be found in Bavel. Tirgama ahutza de Bavel, the korelei kana de shazafta. There's a place called Hutza de Binyamin in Bavel, and that's the corner that's going to be saved from Chavli Mashiach. Apparently, in those places, there was very little znus, and there was the people there were very pure, and that saves people from the sufferings of Mashiach.
Participants, mute all.
Yes. Okay. Let me see. Okay. You got it? Yeah. We got it. Okay. So now the Gemara continues. The Gemara says, Amar Abelazar, new Gemara, Mesim shebechutz la'aretz einim chayim. Those that die in Chutz La'aretz are not going to get Tchias and Mesim. Shnema, v'nasati tziv eretz chayim. Eretz shetziv yoyne bo meisel chayim. The land that is desired, those are going to raise up for Tchias and Mesim. She'ain sid yoyne bo, that God doesn't desire it, ein meisel chayim, then there's no Tchias and Mesim in Chutz La'aretz. So that's a very strong statement, Rabbi Elazar, that those that go to die in Chutz La'aretz, they won't get up Tchias and Mesim. There's a pasuk that says that dead are going to come alive and corpses are going to stand up. So it's a double expression. My lab both are going to get up. So again, that pasuk is talking about a different topic totally. And I'm going to put the deer armed to Eretz Yisrael is like a prophecy that God's going to bring about Nebuchadnezzar, who's as quick as a deer, who came to power very fast, and he's going to conquer Eretz Yisrael and destroy the Beis Hamikdash. But it has nothing to do with Tchias HaMesim. So that's Rabbi Abba Bamala refuting what Rabbi Elazar said. Amalei, so Rabbi Elazar said, Rebbe, Master Mikra Achar Nedars. I have another pasuk that says that they're not going to get up to Tchias HaMesim. So the Gemara says, Noishin, what's the pasuk? Noishin l'shama la'amaleh v'ruach laholchem ba. God's going to give Tchias HaMesim those that walk in it. So then, fine. So it's only those that in Eretz Yisrael are going to get up in Tchias HaMesim. What does Rabbi Elazar do with the double pasuk? The pasuk, there's another pasuk that says corpses are going to get up. It implies that wherever the corpse is, even in Chutz La'aretz, are going to get up. So the Gemara says, no, that's talking about stillborns, but only in Israel. If someone had a miscarriage in Israel, that miscarriage, that nafel, that stillborn is going to get up at Tchias HaMesim, and a regular person is going to get up Tchias HaMesim, but only in Eretz Yisrael. That's Rabbi Elazar's opinion. Rabbi Abba Bar Mamo, he says no. What does he do with my Ovidle? What does he do with that pasuk? That pasuk seems to imply there's only Tchias HaMesim in Eretz Yisrael. Stop. So from here, Rabbi Abba Babal says, no, that pasuk is trying to say that I'm going to allow Tchias HaMesim for people in Eretz Yisrael, those that were maids in Eretz Yisrael. So even a Shifcha Kanainis that lives in Eretz Yisrael will get up Tchias HaMesim because that person is, that Shifcha Kanainis is considered like an like a nation that's living in Eretz Yisrael. But it doesn't mean to exclude that there is no Tchias HaMesim in Chutz La'aretz, because there's another pasuk, the Ve'ilasa Yukumim, that every corpse is going to get up, and that implies wherever the corpse is. So even in Chutz La'aretz, there's going to be Tchias HaMesim. Amar Rab Yirmiyah ba'Abba Amar Yochanan. Ruach laholchem ba. God's going to give wind to those that walk in Eretz Yisrael. Amar Rab Yirmiyah ba'Abba Amar Yochanan. Kol mahalach arba amis be'Eretz Yisrael. If you walk 4 amas in Eretz Yisrael, you're guaranteed that you're thinking about Olam Haba. I don't think it means you're guaranteed to go into Olam Haba, but you're more self-conscious when you're walking in Eretz Yisrael, and then you feel that kind of energy when you get there. So Gemara asks the question. We just got through saying, what do you mean there's no Tchias HaMesim in Chutz La'aretz? It's impossible. Tzadikim shebechutz la'aretz ein chayim. Amar Rabbi Elazar explained, no, it doesn't mean they're not going to get up straight. It means that if you live in Chutz La'aretz, the way you're going to get up Tchias HaMesim al yigdei Gilgal, you're going to roll underground till you get to Eretz Yisrael, and then you're going to get up standing up. Maskala Rabba Basala Rabba Gilgal at Tzaddik and Sarhu. And so if you're a tzaddik and you die in Chutz La'aretz, you're going to have to roll to Eretz Yisrael. That's going to cause you a lot of stress. Amar Abaya said, Mechilas Nasal Bekarka. There'll be underground tunnels under the ground that will, those tzaddikim, they'll find a pathway to get to Eretz Yisrael, but they'll be able to walk standing up. The pasuk says in the Sasanim Mitzrayim Kvartanim Kvarsan, Amar Karna said, Dvarim Bagoy, there are secret things that the pasuk is saying a secret thing over here. What is that? That Yadei Yaakov Avinu knew Shetzadik Gamahai. He knew he was a righteous. The Mesim Shebechutz La'aretz Chaim, if he knew that there's going to be Tchias HaMesim Mechutz La'aretz, Lama Triach Hezbanav. Why did he force his children to bury him right away in the Maras HaMachpelah? Let them wait until after the Gulas Mitzrayim. Why? Because he was concerned, he wasn't such a big tzaddik that he would be zoicha for those special tunnels. He thought that if he was buried in Chutz La'aretz, he would have to roll to Eretz Yisrael. Yosef knew he was a tzaddik gomer, and of course, he's not going to have a problem with Tchias HaMesim. The Mesim shebechutz la'aretz chaim lo metriach is one of Achav Abba Meis Parsha. So what did he care that they should take his bones out of Mitzrayim if he's going to get up Tchias HaMesim anyway? What's the difference if you're in Israel or in Mitzrayim? But he was concerned. Maybe he wasn't such a tzaddik. Shem lo yiskel v'chilas. He will not be zoicha to those tunnels. So apparently, from this Gemara, it seems that in order to be zoicha to those tunnels, you have to be a super tzaddik. Okay. The Gemara just goes another 3 more minutes and then we'll stop. The brother of Rabbah sent to Rabbah. Rabbah lived in Bavel, and his brother, who lived in Israel, wanted to convince him to come to Eretz Yisrael. He told him the story. He told him that Yaakov Avinu wanted to be buried in Israel. So you, Rabbah, come move to Israel. And Ilfa Meisef Ba'Devarim. Ilfa had a version that the brother told Rabbah something else, even much further. And listen to this story. Masa, the brother was trying to convince Rabbah, his brother, to move to Eretz Yisrael. And he says a story like this. Masa be'echa, there was one person, al isha achas. He was lovesick for a woman. Ubikish leirid, and he wanted to leave Eretz Yisrael to go to Chutz La'aretz to marry this woman. But when he heard the whole thing about Yaakov not wanting to be buried in Eretz Yisrael, Gilgal ba'atzmei ad yom moisai. He pushed himself and suffered for the rest of his life till he died. So that was his sacrifice. I guess when the Gemara wants to talk about the penultimate sacrifice of a person to live in Eretz Yisrael, it's talking about we sacrificed every day being lovesick for a woman in order that she will die in Eretz Yisrael. So this is what the brother told Rabbah. And I know you're very smart. Rabbi. You could learn. You have Rabbayim here. You could find a teacher over here. So it's better off. You tell me there is no rabbi that can teach you here in Eretz Yisrael. Yesh lecha Rab. There's a rabbi who could teach you. Umani Rabbi Yochanan, and his name is Rabbi Yochanan. So you'll come learn by Rabbi Yochanan. If you don't want to go, Hizar b'shloisha debarim. If you stay in Chutz La'aretz, you have to be careful of three things. Al tarba b'yeshiva. Don't sit too much. If Chutz La'aretz, you're comfortable in the 5 towns. You don't exercise. Shiva kashal tachtonias. It's bad for hemorrhoids, sitting too much. Valtama bebida, don't stand too much. Amida kashal leiv. Standing is hard for the heart. Valtama alicha, don't walk too much. Alicha kashal l'nayim. You lose your vision if you walk too much. Ella, do it in moderation. Shlish b'yeshiva, shlish b'amida, shlish b'hilach. 3, you divide yourself in 3. Sit 3, stand 3, and walk 3. But remember, don't sit on a bench without a back. Kol yeshiva she'ini mosmicha. If you're sitting without being able to lean back a little bit for support, amida noichameri. You're better off standing. So Gemara says amida salkadaita. Standing is better. Well, Amrit, you said amida kashalev. Standing is very difficult for the heart. One shouldn't stand for long periods of time. Eller yeshiva. We go to Amid Beis. She'ein ba smicha amida sheyesh ba smicha noichameri. If you're having a sitting without a back, you're better off standing and leaning on it. Let's say leaning on a stender. That's because sitting on a with a no back chair with very little support is very difficult. And then he sent in one other halacha, and that's will end. Remember, Rabbi, the halacha is like Rabbi Yehuda, but brothers by a mule. The Tanya we learned in the Brisa, Rabbi Yehuda, pirda is a animal that is made up of a horse and a donkey. So because it's a kalayim type of animal, we don't know what you go after, if it's the father or the mother. So if you want to breed it, you can't breed it with a horse or a chamar because it's only a half a horse. It's a half a donkey. Elamim, no, only from its type. That's the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda. Chachamim argue. Chachamim say that you could go after the mother, I think. So, but we paskin like Rabbi Yehuda. That's another side message that the brother of Rabbi told him in his letter to him, trying to convince him to move to Eretz Yisrael. Omer Rav Nachman Yitzchak, Yitzchak zeh Rabbi Yitzchak. Mapko Shimon zeh Rabbi Shimon Pazi, V'amar Rav Shlokish, Ashaya zeh Rabbi Oishia Beribi. That's Oishia Beribi. All these people paskin like Rabbi Yehuda. So that was the end of the letter of the brother of Rabba sending to Rabba to try to convince him to move to Eretz Yisrael. If not, then he gave him practical health advice and how to maintain yourself while you're living in Chutz La'aretz. Okay. Fascinating. A lot of stuff here.